This is my favorite place in Wichita. Can you read it or is it reversed?
Starlight Drive-In. I mean, I love the logography. It's very, retro sci-fi. I'm all about it. What kind of drive-in is it?
It has 2 screens. They have like a main central building where the concessions are, and you can approach the building from either screen. It's super cool because they still have like the old stands up that had the microphones that you would hook on the side of your car so you could hear the movie. I love it so much. It's my favorite place in Wichita.
It's a drive-in theater then?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought it was a food thing. I was thinking no. Drive-in diner like Sonic or something. That makes a ton more sense. Excuse me while I act completely dense. It's that mental decay coming up for me.
Hi everybody, once again, it is your boy, Michael. This hiatus has been a kick in the ass, and we have a bunch of really cool stuff coming up, you guys. So much cool stuff. And, Garrett's back.
Hello.
Don't mind me, I was just talking to the audience. I was bragging about how great our hiatus is.
This hiatus has been an interesting time, because I happened to turn 30 during this hiatus.
And we're gonna discuss what it's like to be on death's door at the ripe young age of 29 and 30. So I hope you enjoy what's to come. Also, if you enjoy content like this, don't forget to hit the like button so that way we know. Leave a comment below and subscribe, because I know you're not. I've been watching you. I've been watching you from the analytics, and I see you. I'm actually looking through your webcam, at you specifically.
Yeah, so what we're talking about in this episode is, what does it mean for millennials to turn 30? What does it mean for us to enter middle age? Because, 30 is when middle age happens, right? Let's forget all the bullshit about 30 is the new 20, because, I'm not sure how willing I am to buy that just yet.
I am. I'm buying into that real hard. I'm trying to. Yeah, I feel great. This is the best I've felt in my entire life. And I'm turning 29 this year, by the way, guys. So,
hey.
Gang.
So you're, right on the doorstep. I've already hopped the threshold. I mean, okay, it is still just a number. There is nothing eternally ordained about the age of 30 that says anything. But in this cultural milieu that we have, we are nonetheless given certain expectations for what turning 30 is supposed to mean.
It makes it sound like you're having trouble transitioning into 30, but honestly, as somebody who's looking in on you from the outside, I think it was more like 30 carried you bridal style into your new home and with your new opportunities, and you're looking the best you've ever looked. You look so healthy. You're getting into a healthier mindset. You have a loving husband. You're doing so great, babe. 30 sucks, but so did 20. 20
Fair.
Sucked a lot. At least now I have an idea of what I'm doing.
Fair. A lot of this comes too from romanticizing the past. We look back on years that we've already experienced and we think, oh, it was so much simpler back then. I mean, just because we have it figured out now doesn't mean it was actually simpler then.
It's like when you level up in a video game. It's like you've gotten really good at these levels and stuff and you're like, yes. And then there's a gradual increase and you're like, no. I was doing so good. What happened?
Yeah. The thing is, over time, the more you age, the shallower the leveling curve becomes. You know what I mean? It feels like there are fewer moments that mark your development as time goes on. And you really feel this difference, going from child to teenager to, early adulthood.
I didn't feel not excited about growing up a little bit until I started realizing the thing that you pointed out. There's not as many markers for when you get older. What do you celebrate? What point do you stop celebrating birthdays? I'm never gonna stop celebrating birthdays. I love throwing parties. But there aren't big things to celebrate when you get older. It's you're supposed to turn all the attention to the generation that comes after you. Or at least that's how it seems to be now, because it doesn't feel like the generations before us always did that.
Like you described, our culture is very much about the younger generation. They're the ones that have all the potential and possibilities associated with them, and we're all obsessed about what they're gonna do in their time on Earth. Between stuff like that and between our pop culture constantly trying to market itself as young and beautiful and sexy and full of potential, it's hard not to get a sense that after you cross over a certain age, nobody's interested in what you're trying to do anymore. If you aren't already established, then no one's interested. It feels like your society that you live in is no longer really about you or people your age.
I can't tell you how excited I get when I find a piece of media that's the characters are 30 and up.
Yeah, same. I always kind of carried this fear of turning old. Like I had an acute sense, even then, that people were not going to give a fuck about me after a certain age. And you get the sense that you have an expiration date. Mm-hmm. And for somebody who is most likely not going to become rich or famous, that expiration date just seems early.
How do you think, like, our parents felt? Like, when I think back to when I was a kid, I thought that 30 was decrepit, man. Like, my mom was 22 when she had me, so when I was 10, she was only 32. And I thought my mom was ancient. Like, I'm only a few years away from that. My opinions of what it meant to be a middle-aged adult when I was a kid versus how I think of being a middle-aged adult now has changed. How about for you?
It definitely has for me, too. I mean, I know how much things have actually been okay. I have friends still that I did not expect to have this late in the game. Late
in the game, like we're not still in the 30-minute introduction.
Back when we were kids, we had a much firmer idea of the division between childhood and adulthood. Like anybody who is more than a foot taller than us is an adult.
Yeah, and you had no idea how wrong you were. You triggered a memory. I have this very clear memory of being 5 or 6 and thinking my uncle was a full-blown adult because he was in high school. At our kitchen table, he was getting my mom's help with math. And I was like, my mom is an adult, and if my mom is doing adult math, then that must make my uncle an adult. I remember thinking wow, that's really cool. I can't wait until I do that. And I remember the first time that memory triggered again was when I was in high school crying over geometry. I was like, this is not adulthood. I am so stressed. What the? There's so much stress here. I was right. This is adulthood. And then I hit my 20s and it's like, it gets worse. What? And now I'm going through second puberty and my voice is cracking all the time and it's like,
Yeah, your experience of adulthood is very different from a lot of people's because you are going through a whole nother set of physical changes that most people don't go through a second time.
Yeah, it's real weird. By 30, I thought my goal was going to be married with kids, you know? I didn't know that being trans was an option. I didn't have that word until I was in my 20s already, and then coming out to everyone in my late 20s. And now at 30, I get to go through second puberty, and it's a trip.
Your experience, it really kind of throws a wrench into the whole idea of standardized age markers.
Yeah.
And you see all sorts of evidence for this everywhere else in life. People have all sorts of episodes of Arrested Development. I mean, we already know this as a culture. We already kind of know that our standards for what you should have accomplished by X age is kind of bullshitty, but it's something that we sort of enforce upon ourselves anyway.
Yeah, I felt super guilty that when I turned 25, I had friends who were in just starting their 20s who were already married and having their first kid. Or the friends who graduated and were done with school by 23 and I'm 26 and going into my third university. Yeah. I was I really goofed this. There's no fixing this.
Or think about our friends who have successful jobs and are doing the things they want in the industries they chose. And
it's hard not to feel jealous, and I don't feel like people talk about that a lot.
Yeah, there's jealousy in there, but to me, jealousy is too hostile of an emotion to describe what I feel in myself. Because I want to celebrate people's successes. Yeah. I don't want to be bitter about that sort of thing, but it nonetheless kind of hurts to compare myself against that and think that, wow, this is where I should be, but I'm not. We can say, stop comparing yourself to other people, that doesn't work, but we can't help but do it anyway, especially when our society kind of tells us that this is what's supposed to be happening.
We're raised in that all throughout school, too, competing, instead of it being an environment where we work together and cheer on one another, you see it as competition, always. And so when you enter adulthood, it's hard to turn off that part of your brain and relearn what friendship actually means. It's not always a competition. You can be happy for other people while, like, I wouldn't describe what I feel towards my friends as jealousy. I would describe it as envy. Like, I want that for me as well, and I'm a bit envious that you've received it already. However, the overwhelming emotion that I feel for our friends when they do so well for themselves, the overwhelming feeling I have for you when you do really well, is first and foremost love, because I know how hard you guys work. I know how hard you work. I get to be a part of watching you improve yourself, and you get to be a part of watching me improve myself. And even if you're doing something the other person wants to do, like, there's something in your life that they wish they had. There's always I wish, you know?
Yeah. And what we project of ourselves to each other is not always the whole story. It never is.
No, it never.
Yeah.
There's a reason I have this this background up, all right? I'm like, you guys don't need to see my trash heap.
So I think that kind of dovetails with the next little question here. Are there certain goals we wanted to hit by age 30? Like, what did we want to have done by age 30?
Yeah, I thought being an adult meant you finish school and you have your first kid by 30. Not reaching any of those goals by like the time I was like 25 was super painful. It took me forever to reconcile with the fact that I dropped out of college the first time. And then I'm currently doing it a second time. I can't go to school right now. And so the fact that I'm not graduated, I don't even have a significant other in my life, and I have officially given up on the thought of children because I don't know if I could handle the dysphoria that comes with childbirth, and I don't want to pass on my specific genetics. And that has nothing to do with my family line or anything. It has to do with my own health problems. So I don't want to pass that on to anybody. Adoption may be a thing in my future if I get more together. But like, at the same time, something that's great about like messing up the goals I had at 13, I've got to realize something that younger me knew and had no words for. I got to realize I was trans, so I'm working on transitioning. If I had children when I wanted to, I don't know if I could have done that. I don't know if I had the strength for that. And that's another thing. I don't know if I have the strength for kids. I wouldn't have realized that until I had kids. And then I could have been one of those parents that would have been bad for children. And then finally, I have you and I have the channel. And that would have never happened had I become a parent when I wanted to, or if I had graduated with the wrong major. I've also been to Japan, Australia, England. I've traveled around the United States. Yeah, so by 30, I'm more than happy with where I am. How about you? What were you expecting to do by 30? And what positives came out of not reaching those things?
Oh, that's so beautiful to hear, though. Something we don't think about in these conversations is that failing to meet these goals and these expected thresholds is not categorically a bad thing.
Yes.
Like, why do we have these goals? Is failing them really so bad?
But like, it also takes a lot of time to unlearn that like emotional trigger to like trying not to feel like you failed at a life thing, you know?
Life is a many-branched, non-linear thing. And the instinct is to try and make sense of our lives as much as possible by keeping things on a linear path. But that is just not always possible, nor desirable if you look at the grand scheme of things.
Yeah.
Okay, can I be honest? Dreadfully honest real quick.
Yeah.
I didn't think I was going to make it this far. Like, ask me 15 years ago and I would have told you that I planned on being dead by this age. Like, I never actually attempted suicide, but it was a ideation that I grappled with severely from the ages of roughly 12 to 19. And a lot of that was a product of me being gay in a conservative household where I was not free to try and like date anybody. Like, even certain friends I had to try and see behind my parents' back. Like, I just could not be who I was openly. Not being who I really was kind of informed my view of later life in a very dark way. Like, is this just going to be the rest of my life? Am I going to be locked in this box forever? Is this what growing up has to mean? And my conclusion from that was, wow, if I can't like actually live a life that is true to who I am, like, I don't know if I want to live for that long. But as time went on and as I gained more distance from where I was living, I started living on campus. I started branching out my friend group and I started dating around and fucking around. And it was such a freeing and liberating experience
I remember you telling me about this kind of stuff while it was happening, and it's triggering so many fun memories.
Oh.
Like fun phone calls.
It really was one of the best times of my life, it felt like, because I was event by event freeing myself in ways that I never thought I could, but I still kind of had the thought of like, this won't last. Like,
yeah,
you may have the freedom to do all this stuff now, but eventually the pressures of real life are going to close in on you, and you're going to have to pare down who you are. And so like the idea that it would be all over by 30 kind of persisted. But then I came to Los Angeles, and for one thing, I saw how beautiful a lot of people over 30 are. Like, living in a place where people are generally beautiful because it's their job to be kind of changes your perceptions of people. It really goes to show that age is just a number when it comes to things like sex appeal and dateability. As long as you take care of yourself, you have a much longer half-life than you think you do. And I didn't even have to test that too, because a few years after I got here, I met the love of my life and got actually freaking married, which was something I never expected.
I remember when you announced it, I was stunned, because I remember you used to tell me about all the different guys you've dated, the different guys you've dated and stuff. And then you started talking about this person. I was like, oh, this person seems different. Oh. Yeah. Oh. And then, I don't know why, but like when you announced it on Facebook, it didn't feel real. I was like, wow. What?
Yeah, it was surreal for me too, because not only was I coming off this idea of I'm not going to get married because I can't date at all, to, okay, I'm never going to settle down with anybody, to dating several people seriously, to finally landing on somebody who reciprocates in all the right ways and like made me consider marriage in a way that I never before did. And so if we're talking about like major life experiences, I guess that was a really important one for me after all, because it is one of the main things that makes me think that 30 is not going to be so bad. Like, I have that person in my life who adds that level of stability that I need at this stage in my life.
Yeah, you guys are mwah. And that would have never happened had you just stopped. If you had been like, no, this isn't possible because of the situation I'm in now and nothing will ever improve. And I feel like that's something that we have to remember when we feel like everything's still going downhill, you know?
Yeah, it's very important to enter your 30s knowing that there are still plenty of possibilities and remembering to be open to those possibilities. Like, if you're still stuck on what you should have had done by this age, then it's only going to drag you down and prevent you from seizing upon the opportunities that do come up, I guess.
Yeah, and even when it feels like nothing is changing, little by little, you're always changing. It's impossible not to change. You're being influenced by so many different things. Something I've started to do is thinking back on myself. I'll go through my phone and look at pictures from a year ago, and I'll be like, what was my mindset then? What was my mindset multiple years ago? I remember sitting down for the first thing in high school, and then blinking, and I was sitting at graduation. Everything changes before you know it. So even if you feel stuck at 30, you got 40 too, man. Like, you're fine.
Yeah.
You still keep going. Don't give up. Not to be corny, but it's kind of just the beginning, really.
There's something in psychology that I think is really relevant to this. Humans are generally terrible at anticipating how they themselves are going to change over time. Mm-hmm. Like, we don't anticipate ourselves changing because we like to think of ourselves and our psyches as like a static thing that persists through time. But it really isn't. Like, our minds are just as much a ship of Theseus as our bodies. Things are constantly changing over. Our perspectives should be constantly changing.
And that's okay.
Yeah, and that's okay. And you might not find yourself valuing the same things that you did 10, 20 years ago now, or 10, 20 years in the future. We have all sorts of false ideas about what matters right now. Like, every single one of us still does to one degree or another. And we just have to, if damn it, Words.
You're fine.
Speaking of aging, you ever wonder if you're starting to enter into cognitive decline?
All the fucking time. All the time. Is this weed? Is this ADHD? Or am I like experiencing early onset autism? Yes,
Dementia,
actually, you are.
fucking Alzheimer's.
Early onset Alzheimer's.
Is it my genetic predisposition to mental illness?
Yeah.
Is it the world just being unbearable and the constant weight of it just takes a toll on your mind after some years? Like,
On that note, 30s, not the end of it, believe it or not.
I think we've come to the solid conclusion that it is
Yep.
not all downhill from here, even though it sometimes feels like it. If it feels that way, it's because of how we were brought up to think of these ages and these milestones. And the possibilities remain many. Thank you so much, guys, for sitting with us during this little chat. Most of our audience is around our age. So
Yeah, it is.
tell
It's
us what
crazy.
tell us what you think about aging. How is that hitting you?
I know from statistics that only like 24% of you are subscribed to us. What are you doing? It doesn't cost anything. You need to subscribe, please. YouTube won't let me see my family. I've been trapped here for so long.
Hit the button, save Michael.
Subscribe.
Oh my God, do some like Sarah McLachlan sort of thing. If you would like to save a Michael, please donate, hit subscribe, like, and comment. Where's Ayase? Grab Ayase and...
Oh, he's already out of the room because he likes to claw at the door and get angry. If you enjoy content like this, where we just kind of sit and have an introspective chat together, just about things going on in our lives, make sure to hit the like button. Like Garrett said, leave a comment, and don't forget to subscribe. Stay extra, guys. Bye.
Bye.